Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my corner of the internet. Let's dive in. Superhero games often suck. Instead of actually trying to deliver a fun experience, they simply rely on the big name on the box. Who wouldn't want to play as Spider-Man, swinging through street canyons and stopping the bad guys? This PS4 exclusive, sorry Xbox One and PC only players, is thankfully a far cry from one of those despicable cash grabs. Let's first take a look at Peter Parker's typical morning. Fighting the urge to pull the blanket back over his head, having a meager breakfast and ignoring his landlord's reminder that the rent is late. Because yep, Spidey is pretty broke. The rest of the day he spends stopping heavily armed criminals, swinging through Manhattan, interacting with a couple civilians, visiting Aunt May, and thinking about giving his relationship with ex-girlfriend MJ yet another shot. For me, this as a whole is the first big plus of this game. It doesn't portray Spider-Man as an untouchable superhuman. I like him, and you probably will too. The fact that Mr. Parker almost always has a joke on his lips also makes the whole fighting business far more enjoyable. Although the combat would be hectic enough without your character constantly ridiculing his enemies. Especially because Electro, Rhino, Vulture and the rest of the bunch are rather dangerous. You know? Your fight against Mr. Negative and his Asian demons, who are after Mayor Osborn, is one of the biggest narrative threads of this story. But there are some nice twists and turns that you might not see coming. I also really appreciate the swipes at current political events, like a certain podcaster that can't stop spewing ridiculous conspiracy theories. Remind you of anyone? While both story and world building are important in Marvel's Spider-Man, it really shines most through its action-packed combat. You're pretty much thrown into the cold water right at the beginning. Learn to swim, aka master the commands and combos, or die, even on the lowest difficulty setting. What sounds like a daunting task is actually showing off great game design, because in no time your fingers will fly over the buttons of your controller as smoothly as the animations of this game are. Seriously, I could talk about those for hours. You can, for example, snatch surrounding items in combat and hit opponents with them. Very satisfying to see a villain getting a car door smack in his face. On that note, a big thank you to whoever at Insomniac Games decided to add the midnight listening mode, which reduces volume peaks. Because I'm known for startling myself with loud sounds that I should have seen coming. It's especially helpful in the brawls with the supervillains. Not only are these bosses more than ridiculously melodramatic psychos in clown outfits, the confrontations are also varied and really interesting and fun. Fighting against the multitude of criminals initially seems overwhelming, but culminates in a ballet of blows, kicks, jumps, acrobatic inserts and impossible contortions. And don't even get me started on the fun you can have with gadgets like stunner nets or spider bots, or the new abilities that come with the outfits you can unlock, like making you temporarily bulletproof. These additional costumes range from totally new creations, some high-tech, some more on the lower end of that spectrum, to well-known, almost famous looks. One of them is, for example, the suit Peter Parker got from Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, in the Marvel movie Spider-Man Homecoming. Some of them are especially pleasing to the eye, but not all aspects of the game are. The world is far from ugly, but some textures and models clearly get less attention than others. And because the rest is so nice to look at, they really stick out. Houses lack details and depth, and the police cars in some scenes look like they are made out of cheap plastic. Same with the animations. Every time one of Spidey's swings defies the laws of physics, it's hard for me to overlook. And less important NPCs are not only a bit waxy, their movements are also rather choppy. However, I'm very sensitive to those things, so they might not bother you at all. There's really only one other aspect of the game that stood out to me negatively. The missions are pretty diverse. You even sometimes control MJ or Miles, a name that might sound familiar to comic fans. But some tasks still have the taste of, I've done this for the 10th time now and will probably have to do it more often. The map also looks a tad too familiar. It's full of points of interest to visit, where you can then progress multiple long-winded collections, like catching pigeons that insist on flying away from you. While the game world is not very big, changing light and weather moods create a lot of different atmospheres underlining the respective game sections. The accessible part of digital New York is perfectly designed to be crisscrossed by Spider-Man, be it between skyscrapers, in drug-induced hallucinations, or in the middle of Central Park. There is almost nothing that restricts Spidey's movement. The normal speed, pre-skill point boost, is also already so fast that the surrounding cityscape sometimes even becomes a blur. If you're swinging through Manhattan's street canyons, then you're not controlling a character. You are Spider-Man, completely without the need for fancy VR tech. Although there is a fast travel option, I almost always find myself traversing even long distances by net swinging, just because it's so much fun. The game really makes you feel like you are the friendly neighborhood spider. And isn't that the biggest compliment the developers could ever receive? That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Hope your day is as good as gold. See you next video.